Night. And welcome, Debbie.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Hello. I'm so glad there's an audience here. I'll be talking to you guys. This is not a format that I'm particularly comfortable with, so you'll just have to excuse me if I kind of stumble around. But we are speaking actually from the 8th chapter of this book. So for The Listening Life by Adam McHugh, and I do highly recommend it. I read through the whole thing before focusing on this particular chapter. I'm not quite sure how this ended up, except at this timing, except I couldn't do the time that was initially, I was asked to do at that time, and so it got moved around. But this chapter covers the importance of being quiet, talks about discernment of spirits or internal voices, talks about listening to your emotions, listening to your physical body, recurrent questions you might have throughout your life, and an interesting thought project, which is, what would the musical score of your life sound like? Why Eddie just now left, I don't know, but that was for him. And I think that could be a very interesting project, but we're not going to delve into that particular part of it. You might find it helpful. We're going to do more interactive work. So you might be helpful to have a pen and paper or just something to jot on. I don't know if that's necessary, but you might want that. So my focus is going to be on the emotions, the spirit within, and the thoughts, and how you might listen to your physical body. So, which is quite in line with the Shema. So it starts off, and I'll have you guys help me think about what that says. Is that you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Okay. So, and your neighbor as yourself. And that's thinking about this as emotion, spirit, your thoughts, and your body. So we're going to be talking about basically those 4 elements. Listening to our emotions, listening to the spirit within, listening to our thoughts, and listening to how our bodies are responding to all of that. And it is very consistent with some of the updates that Chris is sending us through social media. And it's interesting how this is tying together. It's really nice. So this kind of then begs the question, then how can we love God if we're not aware of these particular aspects of ourselves? If we don't listen to our heart, if we don't listen to what our soul's telling us, if we're not really listening to what our thoughts are, we're not listening to our body, since these are the foundations of the Shema, how is it we're going to be able to respond to God in a loving way if we're not even aware of or familiar with or acquainted with all these feelings that happen to us and all these thoughts? So it's really, we want to see this as the foundation from the Shema to what we're doing tonight. So first of all, we'll just start with the thought question. Do we know what our gifts and our talents are? What are our spiritual gifts and our talents? And we don't ask that question not just for us. It's not about, the goal is not for us. The goal is what is good for the body of Christ. If I don't understand my strengths, my gifts, my talents, how can I possibly use them for the body of Christ? And so it's important that we have that kind of a sense of self-awareness so that we can be a part of and give our best back to the church. So we want us to think about this. I mean, I think sometimes people think that if I spend much time thinking about my emotions, if I think much time I'm just navel gazing, I'm just all wrapped up in myself. And I'm proposing that if we do it properly, this is an understanding of ourselves so that we can better use our gifts and talents for the good of the kingdom of God. So the ultimate goal of listening to our lives is not self-discovery, but growing in that ability to love God and to love one another. So it's not self-centered, but it's God and others-centered. Throughout the centuries, modern rational thought liked to define things and separate things. So if you think back 20 or 30 years ago, perhaps, If you were in a Bible class and you were studying this verse, you know, love, thou shalt love the Lord your God with all your heart and your soul and your mind, what would we have been doing? We would have been taking those 4 elements, dividing them up, defining them very carefully, and making sure we understand how each of the 4 were different. And does that sound right? I mean, that's the way it used to be. Okay, hopefully we're not doing that any longer. We would be more likely to, in recent decades, I think we're more interested in seeing how these various areas of our lives work together, so how they influence one another, how they depend upon one another. So if you think of it like this, that you really can't be healthy in your body for very long if you're a nervous wreck, right? If you're a nervous wreck all the time, your body's going to take the toll and you're going to be sick in some way or another. You can't have consistently negative, cynical thoughts without struggling with your emotions. You know, if you're always having your thoughts are always cynical or negative or distressful, you're going to have emotions like sadness and anxiety and anger. Those things are going to just naturally result from one or the other. You can't watch or read the news 24/7 and really be a happy person. I mean, you should read sometimes, but you just can't have a full diet of that. So our thoughts lead to our emotions lead to our behaviors affect our bodies. It all flows together. So let's delve into some of what this chapter has to say about getting to know your internal life a little bit better. So who in this class will admit that they talk to themselves? Show your hands. Okay, most people, okay, we do. Okay, we all kind of admit that we do talk to ourselves, and that's okay. I really think that's a sign of health and not a sign of unhealth.
I talk to myself.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Now the tougher one. Who would admit to hearing voices? No takers on hearing voices? Maybe a little bit. Okay, maybe a little bit there. Okay, so maybe I'll ask this question. How do we differentiate between psychotic voices and just the everyday run-of-the-mill voices that are constantly popping in and out of our heads? Okay, so if I separate out psychotic, you know, okay, and we just have like, okay, that old track keeps running in my head. You have more hands for that? Voices in your head? Okay. So who has experienced what the Buddhists or people who meditate call the monkey mind? If you're meditating, everybody experienced what we talk about monkey mind. Mind is just jumping around all over the place and we can't seem to control it. So that's fairly common experience. So whose mind is filled with should, I must do such and such, I ought to be doing such and such. I didn't do it, so it's not so good. Okay, so we have those experiences of feeling, of these thoughts that keep popping up in our minds. So McHugh suggests that we need to spend more time in quiet in order to hear these voices. It's not necessarily a pleasant experience because sometimes we don't like what we actually consciously then, oh, this is the voice that keeps popping up. This is the soundtrack of my life. I'm not really thrilled with this, but we need to learn to distinguish these voices that we're hearing, which may be monkey mind, what might be old tapes from our childhood, or maybe they're happy moments in our adult lives. But we need, and we might be thinking, and there might be that we keep listening, maybe we're hearing the Spirit of God speaking as well. So we don't want to think all these things that are popping out of our head are necessarily negative or not. So like, have you had any experiences where you just kind of got quiet, maybe you were praying or maybe writing in your journal or something, and all of a sudden somebody comes to your mind and you think, I really need to send that person a note. I need to respond to that person or send a text or something. So I'd like to think that it's the Spirit of God talking to me at that moment. And I got quiet enough to actually hear it. I got quiet enough to actually respond to that. So anyway, McHugh would suggest that we spend more time in quiet so that we can hear these voices, and then we can start to learn to discern what is what in our lives. So Jill told me to slip this in. What is the anagram of listen? What is an anagram of listen? You might want to use your piece of paper to write that down. You know what an anagram is, you know, rearranging the letters in that word. Dale can't answer since he gave me that one. Okay, who's got it? Silence. Silence, okay. Margie, or was that Sandy first? We both. Yeah, at the same time, okay. The girls in the back, they got it right. Okay, so that's just kind of interesting and curious. So let's think about, is being alone and silent enjoyable to you? So kind of think about that. So probably during our time of quarantine this past year, you've had more experiences of quiet and aloneness. So let's just talk about what that's been like for you. Maybe sharing experiences of being alone, quiet, maybe you're on a retreat. What were benefits or insights? And I'd love to hear from anybody talking about their experiences of being alone, quiet, retreating, whatever. Any thoughts? Julie.
Julie.
Okay.
I think I felt it was beneficial, that because there was more time and I felt that alone time could be spent with God in different ways than I normally would have done in the rush of a day and the rush of a commute and that kind of thing. So that was a helpful thing for me.
Are you sad that we lost that now?
No, because I feel like we still kind of have it. I think I got it.
Okay. Yeah. I'm beginning to feel like things are getting back so much normal that I have to protect that time. Yeah. Others?
I think in part it depends on like the state of some of those other parts, like emotions and thinking. So, if my thinking or my emotions are not very healthy, that silence is super painful. Like when you crawl into bed and you finish reading whatever you're going to read, and then there's no escaping, right? And that's painful. But then there are other times when it feels much more restorative and grounding. So
yeah. I agree. It's kind of like what's going on, but that's one of the purposes of that. We can kind of say, oh, this is what I need to be attending to.
Yeah.
Does anyone here have had an experience of meditation, a practice of meditation? Okay, so there's several people that do. Would anybody like to speak to that? What those experiences tell you about noticing your thoughts or noticing your emotions?
No, but come Sunday morning and I will talk about that.
Oh, okay, you got that covered. Okay. I don't want to step on your toes there.
I mean, meditation means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So yeah, I think a lot of people meditate. They're not all doing the same thing.
Right. One of the, I think, things that every time I hear someone speak to meditation, or when I join a few meditation groups all the time, one of the things that they're always saying is like, just as the thoughts come, and they will, you just let them pass like clouds passing by, and you might even like internally smile at the thought that keeps coming by, and just go like, oh, I recognize you. Oh, there you are again. Kind of just accepting it, not judging it, not naming it even necessarily, but just saying, oh, yeah, I know you. and let it go on by, and then you go back to your focusing on the breathing or whatever. So, but even there, meditation opens us up to a process of listening to our lives, because when we quiet enough to do a meditation, then we are giving us our minds and our hearts and our souls space to come forward and speak to us. So even though we think meditation is supposed to be about erasing what's going on in our heads and just kind of being quiet and not dealing with thoughts, it really has a dual purpose. It is also about letting stuff bubble to the surface that needs to come to the surface, and we can recognize that. So lots could be said about meditation, but I will not continue on with that too long. So we're going to start looking at more specifically now to emotions, thoughts, how our bodies, how we listen to our bodies. So we'll kind of delve into that more directly. So has anyone ever been told in a religious circle that emotions are religious in a religious setting are dangerous, that they're really not to be trusted?
Definitely.
We all have been told that. And Kelly, did I hear Kelly?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Anyone else? Kathy? Okay. I have a very strong memory. When I was in college, I went to junior college. I went to Freed Hardeman before I went on to Harding, where I graduated from. But in junior college, I had a small job. I was to help with clerical work for the director of our choir, which I was in. And Kelly Doyle was a musician, and so he was passionate, he was creative, he had a lot of charisma. He was an emotional person. But I remember, this was during the early 70s, probably late 60s actually. And that was the time of the Churches of Christ where there's kind of a breakout of the spirit. You know, Pat Boone, you know, was getting us all in trouble. And so there was a lot of discussion about the role of the Holy Spirit. Is it active? How do we respond to it? We shouldn't. And so a lot of it was this division between, you know, where are you going to go to? You're going to go only to the scripture to understand the spirit. You can't respond to your emotions because you can't trust your emotions. So I'm a product of that. It certainly, I remember that very clearly. And I remember hearing that going, really? Okay, that's what my church tells me. I guess that's the truth. You know, here I was, what, 19, you know, and I was trying to, you know, listen. And, but so that was clearly, I was told that and I was affected by that. And it's taken me a good bit of time to get to the place where I could say, I can learn from my emotions as well. They have a place in my life, they're valuable. They not only often feel good, they also often tell me things that I need to know about myself and my life and how I fit into this kingdom that God has given me. So I now see emotions as a God-given gauge. Okay, what are our emotions telling us and how do we respond to our emotions are the big questions now, not whether we should be responding to them or not. We are going to be responding emotionally and they're important. So on my, what I want to do today is I want you to think of a situation today in which, so today when blank, when such and such happened, this happened, I felt and fill in the blanks. Okay, but let's, before you do that, let's just think, what are the 5 main emotions? So the first 3 rhyme. Annie?
Anger. Anger?
No, we don't use that one because it doesn't rhyme.
Mad.
Oh.
Okay. Mad. Mad. Okay. And
Mad.
okay. Glad. Okay. And then what do I put over here? There's 2 more. They don't rhyme. How about, okay, we're scared.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so those are the main ones. And we could be hurt. A feeling of hurt is a bit different than any of those others. And some researchers add a 6th one. Does anyone know what the 6th possibility is? It's revulsion. It's kind of like that universal feel, like someone just throws up in front of you. What do you feel? You know, it's revulsion. Okay, and it's universal. And that's the reason people faint at the sight of blood. You know, it's a revulsion. So revulsion, they say that's a little different than everything else, but definitely an emotional bodily reaction to things. So I want us to go back today when X, Y, or Z happened. I felt mad, sad, glad, scared, hurt, or revulsed. Maybe we'll just put that with a question mark. So I will tell you today, I will let you guys think and I'll jabber. Today I went to see Norma, and I felt mad. I felt mad that she wasn't being given better care. I felt sad for her. I felt sad that she felt so alone. I felt glad because Dina was with me, and I was happy that another person was showing an interest in taking care of Norma. And I'm gonna be gone for a few weeks, and she's gonna be able to step in there for me. And I felt scared. Part of that scared emotion was, is this my future? Is this what has happened to me? So I had everything except I didn't feel hurt. I didn't feel particularly robust. But so I'm just showing this as like, it's probably not just one emotion that you might have experienced even in one event. There could be a number of kind of overlapping emotions. But we often think there's one that is, in the front. Anyone else want to kind of give a go at this?
I'll go.
Okay.
This happened a couple months ago. I was called to the hospital. The man was 74. I watched him in the ED. They were working. It was a ventilator. Couldn't breathe. And I had a strange sensation since I've really taken care of myself with COVID that I didn't know if he was COVID or not. So I left him. I then went to where his wife and family were in the family room. And the moment I walked in the room, the woman came over and hugged me. And it scared the crap out of me. Because I'd taken care of myself so much. So immediately I was scared. I went back about 45 minutes later, found out that he had COVID, walked back in, and I told her that we probably shouldn't touch because her husband had COVID. And she said to me, well, we had COVID 2 months ago. And that's when my anger kicked in. But subsequent to that, I had to not only be okay about having my anger, but I could not let my anger get in the way of trying to serve her pastoral. So it made me crazy.
Yeah. But you had to deal with a lot. You had a lot going on to deal with.
But internally, I remember going through all that.
Okay, and so you were kind of aware of it, processing it, and making cognitive decisions about how to behave in response to it all. It just wasn't there. Yeah, but went through all that. Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to take a stab? Okay, we have other opportunities coming up. Okay. Oh, yes, Dale.
No. I mean, hesitant because mine's not near as profound as yours and Laconia's, but I was walking by the river today that we live by, and there's a lot of river life, and there's good birds and there are bad birds. I'm sorry. I'm looking at Sandy to see if I'm getting glared at. Canada geese are bad birds. They're noisy, they poop, and they're in major pain. Mallards are wonderful. They're colorful, they're paired up, they flow so gently through the river, and I have them easily divided in my mind into good birds and bad birds. Yeah, I'm walking by the river, and I watch two mallard moms go at one another furiously, and one of them has a baby with them, like really young and already hobbling, and the other female attacks the mother, drives her off, and goes and starts pecking at the baby. Aww. So the good birds had turned bad. There's a lesson in there somewhere, but it just kind of made me sad. I mean, it wasn't like a big deal sad, but it was just, you know it, but nature is red in tooth and claw. And you can kind of be idyllic about it, and then you kind of have to wake up and see what's really going on.
Yeah. So we end up with this stew of different emotions going on at the same time. Okay, let's try this one. A friend doesn't show up for a lunch date, and you wait, and you begin to feel what? Could be different for different ones, so there's not a right answer.
Worried.
Worried. Okay. Anyone else? All of us are so kind. We'd all be worried.
Well,
you
I'm annoyed.
You feel worried. You could feel mad. I mean, you feel worried, concerned. If you try to get the person and you can't get them, I think you could start feeling mad.
Okay. Okay. So so let's say we're mad. We have some anger. And that would be coming from probably a place of hurt, generally. That's underneath anger, generally lies some sense of hurt. And that's because what is the sentence that goes along with that? I'm hurt because I'm not being
valued,
respected, valued. Okay. Okay. And this hurt then is as a result of an expectation. I expect a friend, fill in the blank,
be on time or
show up,
keep an appointment.
Keep an appointment. And what does that say about you? I expect my friends to recognize me, maybe, if I have needs, I have feelings, I have a schedule to keep. You know, I spent time on, so often it goes back, I'm hurt because the person, they're not aware of my needs, they're not being aware of my feelings. And perhaps then we have to ask ourselves, then this expectation has developed from this need. What is the need that lays under that expectation? I need
respect.
I need respect, okay? Okay, so respect is a broad thing. It could be, broken down to various things. I thought of like, well, maybe a person's kind of like, well, I've been feeling kind of lonely since the pandemic, and I get a chance now to be with someone, they stand me up, and I need that. I'm lonely, I needed that. So sometimes we look at a situation like that, and we see an emotion, and you have to kind of go back and look at, well, what was it I was feeling? Was I feeling hurt? Underneath that anger, was I feeling hurt or some other emotion? And under that, what was the expectation from that? And when that expectation wasn't fulfilled, well, what was the need that was underneath that? And so then what we can do is start to say, well, is there other ways, more healthy ways to fulfill that need in that way? So this is kind of a lesson from therapy, but so a good therapist might help you go through all that.
Deb?
Yeah.
I know this is probably going to sound bad, but I might think strike one.
Okay, you're thinking, I'll give you a moment. Okay. Yeah.
Third strike, I'm out.
You're out.
Not you, I'm out.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah. So this is like, you want to be protective of yourself. That's what I hear in that.
Yeah.
I've been hurt before. I've given myself before, and I plan to protect myself in the future. So that's because there's been a hurt before. Okay, well, because of just time, I'm going to shift into the listening to our bodies. Okay, let's use this. I want us to think about various sayings that we use, phrases that we use that tie a different part of our body to an emotion. So I'm going to throw out like your stomach. Clenched, okay, clenched stomach.
My stomach upset.
Upset, okay, so you're saying, okay, upset, stomach. Okay, what if you were anxious?
Sick.
If you're anxious, you might have butterflies in your stomach. Okay.
Butterflies, yeah.
Okay. There's no right or wrong answers here. I'm just kind of trying to get our minds going around how often there are phrases and ways of thinking of our body parts that tell us something about our emotions. Okay. So we might have butterflies in our stomach. There might be heaviness. We talk about something in the pit of our stomach. What about the heart? How do we talk about the heart and the emotion?
It breaks.
You're anxious. Your heart beats fast.
Okay, heartbeat fast. Okay.
Heavy. It's heavy.
Pardon? Say again.
Heavy.
Heavy. Okay. Heavy-hearted. Okay.
Broken-hearted.
Broken, yeah.
Okay. Broken. Okay. I think heart is the one that we get probably have more phrases than anything else. What about knees?
Knees.
Feeble need, weak need.
Oh.
You're maybe a little like faint or we're not strong. Feet.
Cold.
Cold.
What's that? Cold feet.
Cold
Okay.
feet, yeah.
Cold
How about dragging your feet?
Yeah.
Okay. Tears. Tears.
Cry.
Tears of
Joy, tears of, yeah.
Alligator.
sadness. What about palms?
Sweaty.
Palms. Okay, that tells us what?
Nervous.
Nervous.
Okay. Okay. So we see it's kind of wrapped up into our everyday language, and we maybe are not quite. I'm just kind of bringing that out that this is something that is there all the time. One of the ways we respond to our body is by eating. Responding to emotion by eating is not unusual. Maybe our body responds to emotion by choosing not to eat. Because and sometimes we actually eat because we're hungry, but not often. Actually, too often we're eating or not eating because if you're happy, what?
Celebrate.
Let's eat because we want to do what? We want to celebrate. Whatever.
Celebrate, yeah.
Okay. Let's get a special treat. Let's do something bad for us. Let's eat cheesecake. You know?
Amen.
Yeah. If I feel sad, I'm sad. Let's eat. That'll make me feel better. Or I'm so sad I couldn't possibly eat. You know, like what do we do at funerals and the reception afterwards? We load people down with food, and then the people that have the food kind of go like, oh, take it away. I feel angry. I want to soothe myself by eating more food, or maybe I'm so angry I can't even possibly even think about eating. I feel tired. Oh, I need something sweet. I need some caffeine to get me going. Or maybe I'm just saying I'm just too tired to cook. I couldn't possibly pull together a meal. I'm too tired. So our emotions and our eating, you know, are very highly tied together. Perhaps we could find better ways to deal with our emotions than respond to them with eating or not eating. So like if we're sad, maybe we need to address the sadness, not eat. Maybe if we're angry, we need to deal with the anger rather than eat or not eat. You know, those things like, okay, if I'm lonely, maybe rather than eating a pint of ice cream, I should pick up the phone and call and talk to somebody or go to someone's house and spend some time with them. So all those things are possible ways we should do it. We could get into fasting, but I won't get into that. A little bit of overworking to avoid emotion. Okay, and I'm talking about overworking to the point of exhaustion. So, and I wanted to say, I know that there are times in everybody's life, in some seasons of one's life, there's no choice but to be working. Accountants at tax time just have to work. Mothers of infants have to work. They have to keep doing what they're doing. People in the sandwich generation, between the kids and the caregivers, or just people like Kathy who is a caregiver, you just have to do what you got to do. However, I think our culture always celebrates long hours of work as if it's a badge of honor. Would anyone agree with that statement? Do we celebrate work as a badge of honor?
Yeah.
So examples of how our culture celebrates overworking could be, what are some professions that are known to be overworked? And we honor that and go, well, they need to be.
Physicians?
Yes, okay, that was my top one too. It's like, we train them that way, don't we?
I don't get it.
You don't get why they do it that way? Yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, so even in the areas of spiritual and religious work, I've heard people say, don't worry, I'll rest when I get to heaven. And I think, Still, somehow that is ignoring the God-inspired practice of Sabbath, for even ignoring it, not even giving us ourselves a few hours of work, which is God's way of saying, hey, stop, listen, rest, feel your emotions, notice what's going on in your body. So exhaustion leads to behavior that is uncharacteristic of us. I have to watch my replies in conversation because they're not too snappy or too curt if I'm really overtired. Are we staying over busy to avoid something that we really don't want to face? Example, we stay so busy because we have a fear of failure, where perhaps we're avoiding grieving or a sense of inadequacy. Or are we staying over busy to garner praise from others for our accomplishments and for our good works? So this is often, I have to discern the spirits in that. Am I avoiding something, an emotion that I need to attend to by staying busy? Or am I truly following God's call to be of help to someone else? And that is not always, I don't always find that to be a clear-cut answer, but one that I have to ask, a question I have to ask myself. So from an energy level, you ask yourself some questions like, what or who gives me energy in your life? Like, who are the people or the activities that energize me? What or who drains my energy? When do I feel most alive? When do I feel most exhausted? And that could be a time of day, it could be an activity, it could be a person or a group. So we ask ourselves these questions that gives us some more self-knowledge. So moving on to thoughts and mind. Love your Lord, your God, with all your heart, your soul, and your mind. Okay, much can be said about the mind, emotion, and body connection. In fact, there's a whole field in psychology called the cognitive behavioral therapy. It's based on this connection. And there are multiple courses. If you were studying this, you could take numbers of courses in this. You could do various trainings in this. You could do various therapies that are based on this well-studied connection. But for just a few minutes, we're going to remind ourselves of one aspect, how we listen to our internal scripts. So what are the examples of some internal scripts? And these may have been received from your parents, from your siblings, your peers, or Sunday school teachers even. So if I give you a prompt, when something bad happens to me, I think, what? When something bad happens to me, I think, fill in the blank.
Failure.
I'm a failure, okay.
God is punishing me.
God is punishing me. That's the one I hear a lot. I tend to think, oh, I broke a rule. I didn't follow some rule. But if I'd done that, it wouldn't have, that bad thing wouldn't have happened.
I deserve it.
I deserve it, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have the script that when something bad happens to me, they get to a place that say, I don't know if I'm lovable. Or I'm just not enough. I can't be enough. Or if you get a criticism or a correction from another person, that means I'm fill in the blank.
You're inadequate.
Inadequate. Mm-hmm.
Inferior.
Inferior, I'm not talented. Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could just say they're wrong.
Yeah, that's what I was going with.
There you go.
That'd be better.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
It's better.
Yeah, but if we could just say, perhaps one of the blessed, well, you're one of the blessed ones who had a wonderful childhood, or you've had a wonderful spiritual advisor, or you've had a wonderful therapist, and you can make like those quick connections to your thoughts, and you could say, I'm a beloved child of God. You know, maybe we could get to that a little quicker. You know, that would be our goal. So these people who either had a great childhood or had some help along the way, these people have come to imagine the expression on God's face as a tender, loving father adoring his child. So those who haven't come to this thought too often have a harder time imagining this expression on God, of God's toward them. And they might rather think of God as scowling or unhappy or stern. but I think we should be practicing visualizing God smiling at us and being adoring, an adoring parent. So that's, but what time?
This makes me think of a song.
Mm-hmm.
There's a line from an Amy Grant song that says, "In a little while, we'll be with the Father. Can't you see him smile?"
Mm-hmm.
It's a very, yeah, like that song.
Yeah. So now I'm gonna try to pull all this together, and but you end up with a little something to think about when you leave. So I want to be, as I tell you this, I want you to be thinking of a recent event, somewhat like Laconia has given us. Think of a recent event that you found, that you may have found somewhat disturbing. You won't have to share it with us. But think of an event that on a scale of 0 to 10, it would be like a 2 or 3. So it's not terribly disturbing, but just, 2 or 3. As an illustration of this, what is a 1 and what is a 10? Number 1 would be, I had a minor car accident in the grocery store parking lot. No one was hurt, no damage was done to either vehicle, and the other person was actually pretty nice to me. But it was still somewhat disturbing.
That's a 10.
No, that's a 1. 10 was, I was driving my car when I failed to stop at a light and my child in the back seat was killed. That's a 10. Okay, so we got 0, we got a 1 to a 10. So we don't have to be thinking about car accident. I'm just using that as an example. But so you can think of any other example, but something in a 2 to 3. So I'm not asking you to think about the most traumatic thing that ever happened in your life. I'm asking you to think about something that happened recently that was a 2 or a 3 and disturbing your mind. Okay, so I'll start by sharing an event while you think about this. So a few weeks ago, I wanted to go out on a walk, and I decided to drive downtown Stanford to a park. And I didn't want to take anything with me. So I went to my purse and I took out my driver's license, a face mask, my phone and keys, and put them in pockets. And I had a lovely walk, and I returned home and put my belongings back out of the pockets into my purse. But I couldn't find my driver's license when I was doing that. When I couldn't find it in my purse or any place I was in before leaving the house, I checked all that out. I looked in the car. So Dale came home about that time, and I told him what was going on, and we decided we would go back to the park. I remembered there was a point in the walk where I had heard a text alert on my phone, and that I pulled the phone out of my pocket to see. I thought, well, maybe my driver's license fell out, and so we were going to walk around the park looking for that, which I did. And we went out, we looked and walked past the area where I remember, and no, there was no driver's license anywhere. No, so, okay, go home. And so the way I was feeling at that time was angry with myself, but I also had this sense of just dread. That was the feeling I had in me, just this, in my head of my stomach, a heavy sense of dread. And what I was thinking, what was my negative script? And I'm thinking, what was my negative script, internal script that I was experiencing? And that was like, you're not being careful enough. You're not being careful enough. So, and where in my body was I feeling it? It was there in the pit of my stomach. Okay. So, and I know from years of looking at my emotional responses that for me, where this particular, I know where it comes from. And I'll just share with you. My parents were often devastated when something was lost or broken in our home. They were the products of the Great Depression, after all, and they had not achieved a place in their life that they ever experienced abundance. So we were a working class family of 5 kids, and when something was broke or lost, it was a problem. I don't remember ever hearing comforting responses to lost or broken items in my family. But whether they were punitive, they were shaming, and ones that I recognized come from their fear of lack. I didn't see that at the time. It left me to deal with these fears. It left me with dealing with the fear that I'm going to have to deal with my parents' shaming and punishment. I wasn't really fearful of that I was going to have a thing. I was fearful of their response. So that was my my underlying feeling there. And that's the reason I had that sense of dread, because it was from that experience. So when I noticed that I had that familiar but unwelcome feeling in the pit of my stomach, I could identify it, I could make sense of it, and I could think, losing my driver's license is inconvenient. It's going to be a little cost, but it is a minor expense and it can be dealt with. I don't need to feel ashamed of myself. I don't need to punish myself. And so you might notice there that I could recognize the feeling that led to more helpful thoughts instead of getting caught up in this. The happy ending was that it had nothing to do with my good thoughts. It had to do with other people. But the happy ending was that when we arrived at home, my driver's license was clipped to the mailbox at the door. And all I know is that some good soul picked up my driver's license, saw the address on it, and brought it to my home. And so that left me with, there's a lot of good people in this world. And that was a good thing for me to learn, to end with at the time. Which led me then to, that thought led me to feelings of gratitude and relief. And what did my body experience as a result of all that? My body now felt relaxed and at peace. So again, we went from a thought, from emotions to a thought, to more emotions, and then the change in the body. So you see again how all these things work together. We're like 6 minutes away. Now that I asked you to, can anyone else like to share a recent disturbing at a 2 or 3 level? I don't want to do therapy right here. I just want to help you through something to guide you through this connection between body, thoughts, and emotions.
I'll share one.
Okay, Eddie.
It was during Passover, and I was trying to get everything done for Sunday on a Saturday so I could go and enjoy this Seder dinner in Croton and not be worried about it. So I go to this convenience store because I had the wrong time in mind, and I ended up getting into town an hour early. So I had an hour to kill. So I went to this gas station convenience store, sitting there minding my own business, and a man backs into my car. And I was angry because had I not been an hour early, that wouldn't have happened, this, that, and the other. But this man is 92 years old. Should not be driving. But with his car still embedded in mine, he gets out of the car, apologizes profusely, and I begin to help him process what just happened. When I saw that he was born in January of 1929, 9 days after my own father was born, my whole attitude changed, and ended up meeting a very nice man with a good family, and he had good people taking care of him because everything was in order, even though he didn't know where he was. His daughter and son had all of his paperwork in order. And so that led to a very nice exchange with him and his son.
Okay, so let's break that down a bit. So you had anger at first.
Oh yeah, because oh no, I have to deal with this. I have enough to do.
And I think I heard just the beginning, you were referencing, like if I had not been early. So like in some way you were blaming yourself, that you made a decision that ended up getting you in this mess. So, and we look at it now and go like, that was stupid. You didn't need to blame yourself. It just, it was, but still that is an automatic response.
When these occurrences happen, and life is like that. Had I left earlier, that accident would have happened, or, because it's all about timing and,
Yeah, but you did, but if you had let yourself get caught up in that, it would have had a different outcome than if you let yourself get caught up in the anger, it would have had a different outcome.
I could have attack this man and all of that. But that's not me. When I saw him, it just instantly, I became his caregiver.
So what was the emotion that came out then? How would you name that emotion?
After the
when you saw that man, you could see how his situation. Compassion.
Yeah. When I saw he was nearly my father's exact same age, African American descent, and I began to take care of it.
Okay, so that changed the way you behaved because of your thoughts and the emotions were. Can you remember if you experienced any of that, in your body, that you remember it, how your body felt or how it changed when you felt compassion? That's not something you might have registered.
Well, but when this car first hit mine, I wasn't in the car. I was outside the car, and I heard crunch.
Yeah.
I turned around. There's this car.
So there's
T-boning my car.
So it feels like maybe that initial body response was kind of the
shock and tense.
Tensing out, like, oh, what just happened? Yeah, body, you're on alert.
His body felt a dirge.
What? A dirge?
A dirge.
Whatever that they're fighting in the class. Okay.
A little Beowulf.
So, okay, thank you very much for that story. And we can begin to see how events happen. We have a response to them. They come out of often who we are as people, but we experience them in our body. Like in my case, I know I was listening to that feeling in the pit of my stomach, and I knew, oh, I recognize this.
Yeah.
I know where it came from. And then I could everything else could kind of fall in place because I stopped to notice what I was experiencing in my body. Eddie's experience wasn't as directed to that bodily experience, but you allowed yourself to have a feeling and then respond and then have another feeling, unfold. So, okay, well, now we've got to 8 o'clock. I don't know that we got through everything that needed to be said or done tonight, but here we are.
That's a lot.
So our conclusion is our hearts, our souls, minds, and bodies all have something to say to us, and listening to each separately and in union with each other will bring us closer to listening to and loving God. Well, thank you all for your attention. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Debbie. That was
excellent.
Better.